Hello, welcome to the New York School of Design Sewing Basics course. Once again, I'm Hannah Noth and I'm your instructor. And let's start with the shirred method of creating ruffles. This is a super fun method that I love because it's almost like you're creating elastic. Let me show you this dress, once again, from my closet that has cute ruffle cap sleeves. Now, let's look closely at these sleeves. Do you see all of these gathers at the top of the sleeve in order to create that nice flouncy ruffle sleeve? This is a shirred ruffle. If we were to look inside the sleeve right here, now you can see that they have a nice serge finish on this raw edge, so that's great. But you look above that and there's multiple lines of stitching. That's right, these lines of stitching created all of those gathers. We're going to learn how to sew those exact same lines of stitching in just a moment. The first step in creating a shirred ruffle is that you need to set your stitch length to a basting length. So the longest length for your stitch length. In my case, it's a 4. Then I'm going to take a nice long piece of fabric and I'm going to sew 2 basting lines. But before I do this, it's important to note 2 things. First of all, don't backstitch at the beginning or the end, which you shouldn't ever do with basting stitches. Second, do not trim your threads. I know, it seems like second nature probably by this point to trim your threads after you sew each seam, but it's very key that we have nice long threads hanging out from the end of these seams. You'll see why in just a moment, so leave them there for now. So I just need to sew 2 seams that are close together in seam allowance but not identical. So I'm going to go ahead and sew one 5/8 inch seam and then one 3/8 inch seam. They'll be parallel to each other and I'll show you what we'll do with them after I sew them. All right, so now we have 2 side-by-side basting stitches. Doesn't look like much yet, but just wait. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the top 2 threads on one side, either side, and I'm going to begin pulling at them to create tension in the thread and to bunch the fabric together. See? I'm just doing it on the other side now too, to create lots of little gathers to get that nice ruffled look from using shirring. Okay, look how close together I was able to gather. That whole long piece of fabric is now this beautiful shirred ruffle. One of the major perks of using the shirred technique for making ruffles is that you can use it to create a smocking look on your garments, which is super popular, especially in women and children's clothing. And just by using this simple shirred technique, you can create that really lovely gather. Okay, so we have one more step. Right now, our shirred ruffle is very easily pulled apart, right? If I were to tug on either the thread or the fabric, it would all fall out and all my hard work would be for nothing. I need to lock it in so that it doesn't come out as I'm sewing, and more importantly, that it doesn't come out as the garment's being worn once this is sewn to a garment. So I'm going to change my stitch length back to 2.5, and I'm going to go ahead and sew one seam, not a basting stitch, but an actual seam, just a little bit below this bottom basting stitch, okay? And in doing that, that will ensure that the ruffle, the shirring, does not move, and it will also hide those basting stitches. So if I were sewing this onto an actual garment, then the basting stitches would be hidden as you would want, and you could only see the seam. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I can trim my basting threads because we don't want those hanging out forever. This will be a little bumpy seam because I am sewing over a ruffle, but that's totally fine. I'm going to go ahead and sew at 6/8 of an inch, so it's 1/8 of an inch below my lowest basting seam. I'm just going to take my time sewing over these bumps as it's a little bit of bulk for your machine, but it will work just fine as long as you take your time, go slowly, and try to stay on a straight path on that same seam allowance. All right, so I'm going to trim all of these threads. Feels good to get those out of the way. And now my lovely ruffle at the bottom here from the shirred ruffle technique is all finished. So this would be ready to be attached to your garment. Okay, so that's the shirred ruffle technique. I hope that you're excited to try it on your own now. Make sure to practice like I always tell you, because that's how you're going to achieve some beautiful ruffles that can help create some show-stopping garments. Stay tuned for next week. We're going to learn how to sew buttonholes and the buttons that go in them. This might sound like a big topic, but don't be afraid. I'm going to show you a foolproof technique to sew a buttonhole on your regular sewing machine. I'll see you then.